So moving on, we go to Blackcraft, where we start off with the legendary Maelstrom Serpent. It's a 8-cost 5/5. With the skill, well, its stats are a bit underwhelming to be honest, but the skill is summon a Maelstrom Serpent. Repeat until your area is full if Vengeance is active for you. You know what this means? It simply means if you do not have Vengeance, you summon 2 Maelstrom Serpents. So if you do not have Vengeance, you summon 1 5/5 and 2 5/5. So you'll get a total of 10/10 stats, which is already better than for most 8 cost. And then, if you have Vengeance, repeat until your area is full, which means you could summon 5 of these 5/5s, which means you could get 25 points of stats out of this one card. If you ask me, this card is pretty insane, but thankfully we do have counters for it. The only good thing I can say about it is the one counter is it's only 5 health, so even things like Runecraft's Calamitous Curse when proc with Earthright can counter this card. But other than that, it's pretty scary if your opponent does not have an answer for this card. And you would see why. Then your argument might be, then why you don't put the Blackcraft player to Vengeance? You simply keep his health high. You see that does not work anymore. So next we have the next legendary, 4-cost 4/4, pretty standard. Belphegor. Skill, Fanfare, draw 2 cards, then deal damage to your leader until the defense drops to 10 if Vengeance is not activated for you. So you already have a card that allows you to get down to Vengeance, allows your opponent to get down to Vengeance without having to depend on your opponent dealing damage to you. So if you try to keep your opponent's health high so that you can avoid Maelstrom Serpent, I'm sorry to tell you that's not gonna happen. So this card is good simply because if you are already in Vengeance, you just draw 2 cards, which is insane for a 4-cost 4/4. Then if you're not in Vengeance, you deal damage to your leader until it drops to 10, which brings you in range for Vengeance, which once again is beneficial for Blackcraft. So both of these cards I think will be run in late game Blackcraft, especially Maelstrom Serpent, and Belphegor is very good for generating resources as well. Soul Dominator, 7-cost 4/6. Storm. Whenever another follower is destroyed, gain +1/+0. So basically speaking, since this card has Storm, if you trade off everything else on your field for every follower that is destroyed, once again it says follower here, so it can be your enemies or your own allied follower, it doesn't matter. As long as the follower is destroyed, she gains +1/+0. So and she has Storm, so she can actually deal some pretty decent damage as well. So you can combo her by playing her, then playing some removal spells to remove your opponent's followers. Then you can use her to hit face because she has Storm. So generally she's quite a good card stat wise for just playing on the board. She can be used as finishers, but Bloodcraft has better finishers in forms like Tempest, Vampire, so on and so forth. But I think she'll be a pretty decent card to run in most Bloodcraft late game decks as well. Now, this card was one which I was most interested in. 3-cost Amulet, Blood Moon, countdown 4. Vengeance is active for you even when your leader's defense is more than 10. So basically speaking, on turn 3 you can drop this card, and on turn 4 you already have Vengeance active for you, so you can play everything else like Revelation, like what was that card? I don't remember, the one that destroys and heals 2 health to your leader for free when you're in Vengeance. You can even play Belphegor on the next turn you play this card, and you won't drop your defense because technically Vengeance is active for you. So you can just draw 2 cards for free if you play this, and after that you play her. So really, this is a very good card as well to be playing in Blackcraft, Control Blackcraft. So right now, just by looking at the first 4 cards, I think Control Blackcraft is already gonna be a very strong deck. But then again, I say the same for every other deck here. So the next one, we have 2 costs, 2/2, so standard. Galretto, Devil of Love. His skill is, if this allied follower can be targeted by enemy spells and effects, then your other allied followers can't be targeted. What does this mean? It means, simply put it, this card protects all your other allied followers from targeted enemy spells and effects. But if by some miracle that he gains immunity to being targeted by enemy spells and effects, then your other allied followers lose the immunity. I'm not sure why they put the wording like this. Maybe they intend to do something with other cards in the future, but it's simply like the Elf Child Lisa effect, just that it doesn't include himself, and there is a chance of the immunity being gone for your other allied followers if somehow he gains immunity. Not very sure, but I think he'll be a good card to run just in your 2-drop slots, because it just protects your field, especially in the late game when you build up, say, your Maelstrom Serpents, then you just dump in on the board, so you protect your Maelstrom Serpents from targeted removal. Moving on, we have a 5-cost 4/5 Vlad. His skill, he's a vanilla originally, and then if you evolve him, he becomes a 6/7 with the skill at the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all other followers. Pretty generic, I guess, nothing very special about him. You evolve him, he still gets the 2/2 normal stats. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all other followers. So it's kind of good against anti-aggro, but it's just a ping, honestly, so I don't think this card will be that strong. Yeah, that's all I have to say. So next we have a 5-cost 3/4, kind of weak on stats, but we'll see. It's called Dark Air Gemma. So it's like a giant battleship, flying battleship, I guess. Fanfare, put a random follower that costs 2 play points or less from your deck into play. Repeat once if Vengeance is active for you. So I guess it means when you play him, you put a random follower that costs 2 play points or less, so it can be anything from like Galretto to maybe even Vania. If for some reason you're playing Vania in a Control Blackcraft deck, you can put in what's that called? The Levin Duke guy from the 1/3 2 cost, and repeat once if Vengeance is active for you. So basically, this card attempts to fill up your board for you, especially if you have Vengeance. So I think it's a good card in terms of just playing for the board, but yeah, it's just an okay card, especially since it pulls up your low cost cards for you, which makes your draws more reliable because it thins out your deck for you. So it's generally, I think, a good card to run. Next we have Baphomet. It's a 2-cost 2/1, so slightly on the weaker side for stats. Fanfare, put a random Blackcraft I can't talk. Fanfare, put a random Blackcraft follower with at least 5 attack from your deck into your hand. So, and on an enhanced 5, subtract 3 from its cost. So basically speaking, if you play it for 5, the other card becomes cheaper by 3, so you can play that other card with hopefully other cards as well. So you can make more of a combo, so to speak, with the card you've drawn. And put a random Blackcraft follower with at least 5 attack. There are quite a bit of Blackcraft followers with at least 5 attack. You probably want to search out things like Tempest Vampires, maybe the Maelstrom Serpent, things that you can play to just push for pressure. So this card searches those cards out for you, which is pretty good. And for his cost, he only for his effect, he only gets subtracted 1 in terms of health, so it's actually pretty good. So I think I would run him in the 2-drop slot. Moving on, we have surprisingly a Amulet, 2 cost, Mask of the Black Death. It's a countdown 5 amulet with the skill. Whenever your leader takes damage, reduce the damage to 0 and subtract the same amount from this amulet's countdown instead. So if there is more than one allied Mask of the Black Death in play, subtract this amount from the countdown of each. So basically speaking, what it means is if you play this card, your leader cannot take damage until the countdown of this card is gone. So more simply, if you play this card, your leader, it absorbs 5 damage for your leader because it has countdown 5. And then if you play 2 copies of this card at the same time, it's not, I think by the way it's worded here means it's not efficient if you play 2 copies because it simultaneously retracts from both. So at most you only want 1 copy of this card in play at any time, but the fact that it absorbs damage for your leader helps your leader to survive in the late game as well, or it also helps your leader to activate effects that deal damage to themselves. Say you want to do something like Demonic Storm, but then you don't want to take damage because you're already at quite a low health, you can play this card, you can play Demonic Storm. This card will absorb the Demonic Storm damage for you, while your opponent and the rest of your followers can still take the damage. So it's a pretty good card. I think actually you would want to run 3 copies of this card and then just save them for when you actually hit Vengeance, then just play it to survive. Next we have a 6-cost spell, Stolen Life. Deal 3 damage to an enemy follower, then give +3/+3 to a random allied follower. I think the spell is okay, but it's not the best, simply because first it's extremely expensive, which means if you play it, you probably won't be able to play anything else pretty strong for the turn. And it also gives +3/+3 to a random allied follower, which is pretty good for buffing the board, but it really doesn't like help your situation that much. Unless your opponent only has 1 thing on the board with only 3 health and you have a already decent board, then you can just play this card to remove it and buff your own board more. But other than that, this card is pretty expensive and pretty slow because it's 6 costs, you're only dealing 3 damage. You get 3/3 stats to a random allied follower, but once again it's random, so RNG might screw you over. Moving on, we have Assault Werewolf. He's a 4 cost 2/5, which is slightly weaker on the stats, but I think a 3/4 might have been better, but oh well. He has Clash, gain Bane until the end of the turn if the enemy follower has Ward. So basically he's a vanilla 2/5 unless he battles a Ward, where if he battles a Ward, he gets Bane. So basically he's a clearer of wards, so to speak. Every single time he battles a ward, he will confirm, clear the ward, and gain Bane until the end of the turn. So if by some skill you give him 2 attacks, he can actually use his Bane to clear something else as well. So he's an interesting card. I'm not sure whether you will run him in a BloodCraft deck, because if you want to clear wards, you're mostly pushing for damage, which means, well, not necessarily, but most of the time, BloodCraft can take their time to clear wards. It's not so necessary to force clear them, but we'll see. I'm not very sure about how to rate this card, so I'll just leave it for now. Next, we have the most ridiculous card I've ever seen, Frogbat. So anyway, he's a 3-cost 2/2 with the skill at the end of your turn, gain +1/+0. And sometimes I like to ask myself, why is this card in BloodCraft? Why isn't it in neutral? But okay, I'm simply gonna say this card, I would not run him in my BloodCraft decks, simply because his health is too low to justify his skill, and he's a 3-cost for 2/2, which is already quite a weak stat. He gains +1 attack at the end of your turn, but at the start of your opponent's next turn, he's probably already gonna get removed by some removal spell. And at most, even if he gains attack, he'll be 3-2 next turn. Something on your opponent's field probably will trade into it, and it's just gone. So I won't say he's the most useful card I've ever seen. It's just, I don't really think he'll be useful, but I could be wrong, so we'll see. Next we have, no, it's not next, it's last. We have Spiderweb Imp. It's a 2-cost 1/4. Okay, interesting stats. And her skill, she has Ward. Okay, and deal 2 damage to your leader if Vengeance is not active for you. So it's a very generic deal damage to your leader if Vengeance is not active for you. And she has more than normal stats, I believe, because 1 attack and 4 health, that's a total of 5 for a 2-cost follower, which is pretty good. And she has Ward, so she helps to survive in the early game, especially against aggro. Yeah, I think she's generally just a good card to run for your 2-drop slot as well. But I think your 2-drop slot might get a little bit packed with her, Mask of Black Death, Bahamut, and Galreto. So you might have to choose one of these few to run and one of them to drop. I think if I had a choice, I think I would drop her. But some people might not want to run Bahamut. They might feel it's not that necessary to draw the resource. So really it's up to your personal choice and experimenting with decks to see what's better. So that ends it for the Blackcraft section.